Well, hello and welcome to PowerPoint and Google Slides, tips and techniques for tutors. My name is Lisa Weston, and I'm going to go ahead and jump right into today's agenda. So we're going to start out with just a very high level review of a couple of presentation do's and don'ts. We're going to move on to templates and themes. Pardon me. We're going to take a look at inserting and formatting shapes, pictures, links, videos, tables, SmartArt, and screen recordings. And we're going to move on then to animation. Lastly, we're going to move into Google Slides. So everything that we cover in the first four items is going to be within PowerPoint. And then we're going to take a look at how to do most of these techniques in Google Slides. Google Slides doesn't support everything that you can do in PowerPoint. So we'll be covering most of those same techniques. I also want to let you know before we get started that I'm going to be working on a Windows PC. So I'm in Windows 10. I'm going to be working in the latest, greatest, newest version of PowerPoint. It's Office 365. So if you have a 2019 version, it's going to look very much like mine. But if you have an older version of PowerPoint, let's say 2016, 2013, or 2010, things are going to look a little bit different. But for the most part, you're going to be able to find your way. You're going to be able to find these commands and techniques, etc. I also want to let you know that this session is geared towards someone who has some basic knowledge of PowerPoint. So I'm going to be opening up slides and manipulating things. And my assumption is that you know how to do the very basics, know how to save a document, use the save as to create a copy of a document and so on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with just a few do's and don'ts. This is going to be a very short portion of this presentation. So if I take a look at this slide, this is an absolute don't. This is a crowded slide with too much text and graphics, and your audience would just really not know where to look, right? So it's too cluttered. That is an absolute don't. And we have this unhappy fellow in the lower left corner. Here's another one, terrible animation, and as well as just not enough contrast, right? The contrast of the font color against the background, it's too crowded, too much text, and I just basically can't read this. So it's a definite don't. We'll get rid of that one. Here's another one where the animation might make you a little dizzy, as well as a review of the contrast. So what's recommended? So if you have a white background, obviously you want to use a dark font. If you have a dark background, a light font. You never want to is light on light. You don't want to use dark colors like this dark blue and green and the red and yellow together, because not only is it just not enough contrast, but some of them just almost hurt your eyes. It's difficult to read. So you want, of course, to always use the best possible contrast for your background or for whatever it is that you're creating. All right, a couple of tips. And let me uncover this little fellow because he's now smiling. So keep it simple, keep your slides simple. Limit bullets and text. And I know as a tutor that that's not always easy to do. There's sometimes, let's say, a whole paragraph that you want to put on a slide for, let's say, part of a reading exercise. But I have over time, considering my audience, knowing what kind of device they're on. If they're on a phone, they're going to have difficulty seeing anything that's, really too much text on a slide. Tablets maybe as well. But you know your audience, you know your students, and you want to try to limit the number of bullets and the text that appears on any one slide. Use high quality graphics. You might have a picture that you love, and when it might be really small, and when you stretch it out, it becomes pixelated and fuzzy and not a very good quality graphic. Because there's so much available online, just abandon whatever doesn't look good and go look for something that's just a sharp, clear image. Use animation with a purpose. So if you're animating text on a screen or you're animating an object on a screen, that has a purpose, something that you want to maybe reveal as you go through parts of your lesson and bring onto a screen, that's great. Something flying across the screen with animation, if it doesn't have a purpose, it just confuses people. And of course, use video and audio when appropriate, but just, wherever you can to make things more engaging, maybe use a YouTube video or maybe some audio clip that you found online, again, just to keep your audience engaged. All right, so now that we've covered the do's and don'ts, now let's go ahead and take a look at templates and themes. And I'm going to head over to a document, excuse me, that I created for this presentation. This is not my actual template, but I'm going to use it in the following way. I'm going to show you a welcome screen for your presentation and then show you how to build it. I'm going to show you an agenda and show you how to build it, how to create sections, how to use photos, animation, text boxes, and so on. So what I'm going to do is just go through the various slides and show you how they were created, and in that way showcasing various features and functions within PowerPoint. All right, so when you're starting at the very beginning, and let's say you have a PowerPoint, but you don't love it, and you say, you know, maybe it's a little bland, maybe you started out with a white blank slide and you try to add some color and it was difficult. I want to show you just a couple of tips, ways to get to a colorful and engaging template that you can use week after week in your tutoring sessions. So let's say I don't yet have a template. I can start out by going to File and going to New. And even if I'm opening PowerPoint cold, you know, from my PC, I'll arrive at a very similar screen. It would be a start screen and it would offer me the same options: blank, templates, and themes, right? So I can opt for a blank white slide deck, a template, or a theme. So what is a template? So I'm sure many of you know, because templates have been around for a very long time within Microsoft applications. And a template is a collection of, or I should say, a combination of, sorry, for some reason I can't find a word. It's a combination of fonts, color, and graphics. And a template will also often have some suggested layouts for particular slides or purpose. So let's say I was going to create a slide deck that was a biography of me. I could actually find a biography template that suggests that I cover, let's say, my life experience, my work experience, and each slide is kind of a suggested layout for going through my biography. So that's a template. A theme, on the other hand, focuses primarily on a combination of color, graphic, and font. So it gives you background colors and it gives you layouts, et cetera, in a particular design, but not necessarily with any suggested slide layouts. So that's the difference between a theme and a template. Template gives you a little bit more, themes give you a little bit less. But when you're creating something as varied as your lessons from week to week, you might want to steer clear, and this is just my opinion, of templates, because I think you're going to end up deleting more from a template than you will be, you know, using. So anyhow, so let me take you through just the basics of selecting a template or theme. So if I scroll down here, I can actually search. It says search online for templates and themes. So if I had a specific idea in mind, I could actually type it in. Like if I was looking for, you know, biography. And there are actually a couple. There's this biography presentation, historical timeline, et cetera. So you can narrow the search a little bit. I could also, though, click on the links below this search field, and there are presentations, themes. So Microsoft isolates the themes and separates them out from the templates. There's an education category, charts, as you can see, these are all links. So if I wanted to, let's say, check out education, and I click on the education link, I'm going to see a collection of templates and themes specific to different topics in education. And you can see each one has a name, you know, my invention, reflections on learning. There's that, actually the biography is in the education category, and I can scroll through. Now, the toughest part, in my opinion, in finding what's right for your presentation, something that you feel comfortable using week after week, is going through this process. There's so much available. Well, which one am I going to like? Which one is easy to work with, et cetera? They're actually all easy to work with, but you know, it's just a matter of your personal preference. So, you know, you start out by clicking on one, opening it up by clicking create, and just checking it out and saying, you know, does this give me more than I need, exactly what I need? And this is a template, right? So here is actually that very biography that I was describing, where there's a slide pre set and laid out for me to list some of the events in my life, in my work, influence, etc. So any one of these slides can be deleted or modified, and certainly you can add any slide that you need to an existing template. So if I wanted to modify, this, and maybe make this, work. And if I wanted to just delete something, I can just click on it. I can move things around. I can just change the layout entirely, and so on it goes. So any template you open and want to use, because let's say you just like the look of it, you can just start manipulating and modifying it. I'm going to close this. So that's a template. I'm not going to save it. And I'm going to go back to File and click on New. And this time I'm going to click on Themes. And themes, once again, are primarily graphics, color, and font. And if I scroll through, I can see there are many, many options here for me to choose from. And here again, finding the one that you feel comfortable starting with is really like the longest part of the process, because so there's so many great looking themes. Which one am I going to start with? But I do know that the theme that I want to use for this presentation has a name, and I'm going to look it up by name. Oftentimes, you're just not going to know the names of the themes. There are just so many unless someone suggested you use one. The one, again, that I selected for this presentation is called Floral Flourish. And here it is. And to select it and use it, I'm going to click on it and click Create. And here is my theme. Okay, so actually, I just want to show you something. What I just did is when you're feeling that your screen is a little cluttered and you want to hide all of these commands, and the only thing you want to see are the tabs. If you double click on any tab, on the tab name, it will open the ribbon. And if you double click again, it will close it. And I often close it when I'm with a student, so that when I'm coming in and out of presentation mode or slideshow mode, that the screen doesn't look as cluttered. For our purpose, though, for reviewing various techniques, I'm going to double click on the tab and I'm going to just keep that open. Okay, so what do you get in a theme? Well, you can see here you get some graphics. And in this case, it gave me one slide. You oftentimes only see the title slide. You don't see any additional slides. And I'm clicking here in the navigation pane on the left side of the screen. You usually just get this very first title slide. Okay. So how do you know, though, if this theme is going to be right for you over time? I would suggest that after you open a theme and you see what's available in the left navigation pane, is you go ahead and click on New Slide. So I'm on the Home tab. I'm clicking on the bottom portion of the New Slide button, and it opens up a gallery of options. And each one of these is a unique layout that has been preset by Microsoft for you to very simply select and insert the type of slide that you need for whatever it is you need to build on that slide. So let's say I was creating a section header right after this title slide. And let's say the very first section was, we're going to review homework. I can select section header, and I can click in and type and say that this is going to be homework review. Okay, so I'm starting to think, well, you know what, this particular theme is going to work for me. I may want to make some additional modifications to the theme, but for the most part, I think this is going to be good. But let's say, I reconsider and I think, you know what, I don't really like this background. I don't think it's going to work for my tutoring sessions. Maybe it's too bold or loud. I'm going to start walking you through some changes that you can make to really any slide. All right, so let's say you don't like this particular background and you want to change it. Maybe you want something that's more specific to tutoring. And you can see here that I created this. It kind of looks like a Zoom background or a Zoom session in the background, with pencils and coffee, et cetera. And I kind of like the colors. It's kind of soothing. So let me show you how to change out the background on that title slide. Okay, so changing a picture and inserting a picture are very much the same. However, when you have an existing image or a picture like this graphic that I'm clicking and moving around is a little bit different than going straight to the Insert tab, Picture, Online Picture for an insert. This one's a little bit different. I'm going to click on the picture. I'm going to right click. And what I want to do here is change the picture. And here I'm going to click on from online sources. And I'm going to search for a Zoom meeting and press enter. And here I can scroll through a ton of options. Some are actual photos. Some of them are like the one I chose, are a drawing. And as I scroll through, more and more pictures will load, and I can keep going and going for quite some time. And I'm going to just, actually the one I used is right here. I'm going to go ahead and select that. So this is the one that I used for that sample presentation that I showed you a little while ago. And all I need to do is click on it, right? And you can see there's a frame around the selected image, and click insert. And there it is. And if I want to, I can stretch it out just a little bit. I don't want to distort it, but I want it maybe to fill more of the screen in the background there. And I now have modified the background that came with this particular theme. You'll also notice on the right side of my screen, because I have the latest version of PowerPoint. So if you, once again, are working in the 2019 version or the Office 365 version, you will also have this. And over here on the right is something called Design Ideas. And what PowerPoint has been designed to do is provide you with design ideas. So if you want to just kind of kick everything up a notch, scroll through some of these, and you can just click on them and transform your slide layout. And some of these are just really lovely, creative ideas. Now I'm going to undo that because a lot of you may not have the latest version of PowerPoint. So let's just stick with the basics, right? So what could you do if you don't have design ideas being provided by Microsoft? And here we just changed the picture. So it was that easy. All right, so as I continue to build a template, and again, this is going to be something that I intend to use lesson after lesson with some modification, of course, for each lesson's topics. I can create sections or slides that I think I would like to embed and use in every session. So what happens though if you have this great slide in another presentation? So I'm going to go over to this presentation. This was lesson 14 actually that I used with my student, and we would go over, the date and the weather in every session. So here I have this great slide. It's called Today's Date Is, and I can come over to the slide on the left here in the left navigation pane. I can right click on it and I can copy it. I can head back over to my slide. This is going to be my template. I can click where I want to paste it, and I can just use the standard paste. Now watch what happens when I just use paste, right? Control V as in Victor, or if I just click on paste. Now this slide doesn't look like the other one. The other one had a black background on the bottom portion, etc. So what happened? So whenever you paste, and here's a tip from another presentation, and you want to retain the color, the graphics, you want the slide to look exactly like it does in that original presentation. Your paste menu, the top portion will just give you a paste like the one I showed you, the Control V. But the bottom portion of paste actually has some options, and it says use destination theme. Well, that's what we're looking at here. This is the destination. Adjacent to that, it has an option to keep the source formatting, and that's the one we want. The source is the other presentation, the black band at the bottom, etc. That's what I want. I'm going to click on keep source formatting, and I ensure that I get exactly what I was looking at in the other presentation. So just a little tip as you're building out your presentation and you're borrowing from other slide decks, you can just simply right click, copy, and then when you come to paste, make a decision. Do you want to paste with your current theme, the destination theme, or the source formatting? Okay, another thing that I want to show you is the slide master. And you might open up a theme and say, you know, this is great. However, I don't really like the font style. And why is everything in all caps? And if I want to, you know, certainly I can select the text on a slide and I can go over and change from all uppercase to maybe capitalize each word. But I don't really want to do that slide after slide after slide. So how do I make a global change to my template? This is what I'm creating that I want to just use, and some of the things I'm going to show you are going to just save you time week after week, so then you don't have to continue to modify font styles and sizes, etc. All right, so if you want to make a global change to your template, you want to go to the View tab. Oops, when I said View and clicked on Review, that didn't work. So when you go to your View tab, you can see that right now we're in the normal view. That's what Microsoft calls this particular layout. And then over here in the master views, we have slide master, handout master, notes master, but we want to work with the slide master. And when I click on slide master, what I'm really doing is kind of going behind the scenes. I'm going to this master control panel where I can say to PowerPoint, you know, this is the font style that I would really like to use. This is the size I want to use. This is et cetera, et cetera. So if I click on this very first slide at the top, you'll notice a little bit larger than the layouts that sit below. Here's where I could make some global changes to font style and size. So if I click on this, it's called a placeholder, right? It's a placeholder for text. If I click on that and go over to my home tab, I could make changes to the style. I can make changes to the size. I can click on the bulleted list below. I can also make changes to the size if I think that I want my bullets in general to be a little bit larger. Then I can click on some of the layouts and make changes. So this particular layout, you can see that the title will default to all caps. Well, I don't want all caps, so I'm going to click on that particular placeholder. And you'll notice I'm clicking on the outer edge. I'm not selecting text and fussing with all that. If I click on the outer edge of a text box or a placeholder, placeholders are holding a place for your text. So I can click on the outer edge. I can see that the line going around is a solid line, and I know that I have selected it. So now I can come up to my home tab in my font group and make a change and say, I would like this to default to capitalize each word. I can keep going, do that to this particular one. I want to just capitalize each word. I can check this out and say, maybe I want to make this one a little bit larger. And each one of these layouts are available to you when you're working with your presentation and building it out. These are available to you for selection. So here, maybe I want these to be a little bit larger, and you can just browse through and make changes. And what I'm doing now is setting things up so that as I select these slides, I get the font sizes and styles, etc., even colors. So if I wanted to, let's say, select these two placeholders. And what I'm doing, by the way, to select more than one placeholder is I'm clicking on the border for the first one, holding my control key down, clicking on the border for the second one, and you can see I now have two placeholders selected. And maybe I want that font to default to the color blue. So I'm now, again, in the slide master, defining globally the look of the fonts throughout the presentation. So the style, size, and color as needed. All right. So when I'm done, I'm going to go back to the Slide Master tab. And Slide Master tab is a contextual tab and only is available to you when you click on the Slide Master view. So if I go back to Slide Master tab, I want to now close it and come back. All right. So now what I've done is if I went ahead and inserted another section header, you'll notice it's not defaulting to all caps, right? It's now just capitalize the first letter in each word. All right. So I now made a modification and I made my life a little bit easier. So I'm now going to just right click and I'm going to just cut that slide that I inserted. Okay. So once again, to get there, you go to view, you go to slide master, you make your changes and then close your master view. And of course, you can see that that tab for the slide master is gone after I click close. All right, one other thing I want to show you so that you don't feel boxed in by a theme or boxed in even by a template, should you select one, is the ability that you have to modify any one slide. So if I were to insert, let's say, a new blank slide, and I wanted to change the look or the theme for just that slide, I just wanted to have a different kind of look because maybe I'm presenting something that I want to stand out a little bit more than the other slides. So now I have this gray slide, not very pretty, but I can now go to my design tab. And you'll notice that there are a whole bunch of themes here. And I'm clicking on the more button. Let me do that again. You have a up facing arrow, down facing arrow. And then when I point to the bottom, there's a down facing arrow with a line above it. That's more. That will open a gallery for you. And that's consistent throughout all the Microsoft applications. So when I click on more, I can take a look at the gallery. And I can see here, you know, there's a whole bunch of themes. Now I can actually use this to change the theme for the entire presentation. Well, I don't really want to do that. I just want to change, pardon me, the theme or the appearance of just this one slide. So I can look through the various themes and then I can right click, pardon me, and apply to selected slide. So now you can see that I have one slide only that has been modified. All right, so let me do that again just so you can see the process. I also want to say that I'm pretty sure that as far back as 2016, you have a design tab. Before that, this is not going to work. But if you have 2016, 2019, or newer, you can change the design of one slide. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and click the bottom portion of new slide. I'm going to select a blank. I want to go, and it doesn't have to be blank. It can be any layout. Click on design, check out the various themes. Once again, I can change the theme for the entire presentation or just right click on one and apply to selected slides. So super easy for you to start integrating some other looks or additional looks that just supports you again in helping something to stand out or differentiate it in some way within your presentation. All right, I don't need these two slides, so I'm going to select them using my control key. To select two, click the first, press control, click the second, press my delete key, and they're gone. All right, what I have not done yet, which probably I should have done at the very beginning, and just as a user, not for the presentation, but just as a user, is just simply go to save, right? I want to save this presentation, and I'm going to save it to, you know what, maybe just to keep it simple, I'll save it to the desktop. And I'm just going to call this my sample template. You'll give your template a name and you'll save it in a place where you can find it easily, of course. I'm just dumping mine right on the my desktop. All right, so that is the review of templates and themes. I hope you found a couple of tips in there just to help you design a template that you're comfortable using session after session. And just by the way, if I haven't already said this, once you've created lesson 1 and you've got something that you really feel is a strong, you know, foundation for all your lessons, I always preserved all of my lessons because I would, you know, if I was covering nouns in one lesson, I would delete that for lesson 2, but I would start out by opening lesson 1, file, save as, label it lesson 2, and then start modifying it and changing and deleting, editing, copying, pasting, whatever was necessary. Okay. And then I would just have a complete library of all of my presentations. Okay, so now let's take a look at the next agenda item. We're going to be inserting, formatting, and I'm kind of going to be blending in some animation as we go. So the next 2 agenda items are going to kind of merge together as we go. All right, and actually let me come out of this and I'm going to head back to my presentation that I started building. So I'm going to go ahead and this is going to be lesson 1. I can insert my name and I've got today's date. I've got the homework review. What I'm going to show you how to do next is how to insert SmartArt. And what I want to do is insert an agenda and use the agenda as a way to show you the SmartArt feature. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the bottom portion of New Slide. I'm going to make my selection. All I need is a title for this particular demonstration. And in the title placeholder, I'm going to type in agenda. And I'm going to show you how to insert SmartArt. So if you've never used SmartArt before, just to give you an idea of where I'm headed, this graphic with my agenda for the topics we're covering today is SmartArt. I did not create this from scratch. I did not build this out by adding a bunch of shapes, but rather I inserted SmartArt. So to insert SmartArt, you're going to go to your Insert tab. You're going to click on SmartArt. And like many things in PowerPoint, there is a gallery and there are many, many options to choose from. You notice though on the left side of this little dialog box that there are different categories. I can create and use a preset graphic to create lists, processes, cycles, hierarchies, relationships, matrices, et cetera, et cetera. So in the list category, this is the one that I use. It's called a vertical box list, and you can choose any one that you are comfortable with. I just kind of like this one, so I'm going to select this and click OK. And this jumps into my slide, and you can see here that there's placeholder for text. And there's also this tiny little arrow on the left border of my SmartArt. And if I click on that tiny little arrow, this other area opens up where I can type text. So I can type text here in the rectangle, or I can type it in this kind of a work area, right? Like a text box working area. So if I'm going to build out an agenda for my lesson, I can start out by typing homework. Maybe that's the first thing we're going to do. And then maybe we're going to do some vocabulary. And then we're going to maybe work on nouns. And now I've run out of agenda items, right? Or places for my agenda items. So if you know how to work with bullets, you know how to add another item to this particular list. And you simply click at the far right of your last entry, press your enter key, and you have another agenda item. You can see that another blank rectangle has been added. And I could then add, maybe we're going to do some practice. And you can see I'm adding very generic items here. Maybe we're going to do a wrap up at the end, and I can keep pressing enter and adding more items. If I've added a bullet that I don't need, I can just use my backspace key to get rid of it. You can see if I press enter, it created this rectangle. Backspace removes the bullet and the rectangle. All right. So now I can click on my SmartArt. And one of the things you want to be careful with SmartArt is you can click on a rectangle and try to move it, and it'll go, you know, you could pull it out of the image. You could make it, actually, it's very easy to make a mess of them. So you don't want to pull and click on the various rectangles in this case, or the shapes within your SmartArt, but rather click on the border. And it's easy to click on a border by just clicking on one of these, they're called sizing handles, these little circles. And if I click on them, I can feel confident that I'm only selecting the outer border. And once I've done that, I want to look for the four-headed arrow. So you can see that I have two-headed arrows and there's a four-headed arrow. Click and drag, and I can start moving this SmartArt around. I can do the same. I can click and drag my title up and out of the way. Click and drag this. I can also size this. So if I would like this to be a little larger, I can click and drag on any one of these little white circles, these little handles around the edge. If this box is in the way, that same little arrow that sits at the left side of this SmartArt can be clicked to close. So I can click and drag and stretch this out, make it wider. All right, so now that I have my SmartArt in place, I might say, I don't really like this color. Now what I'm going to do. So I didn't ask for this color, it just popped in when I selected the SmartArt. And this color palette, by the way, comes with the theme that I had selected. So that, you remember probably that graphic that I replaced had colors like this orange and, you know, some other really vibrant colors. So that becomes the palette for the entire template. So if I want to change that though, I can click on my SmartArt and I can look up here and there's a SmartArt design tab and a format tab. And these are called contextual tabs. If I click away from the SmartArt, those two tabs are gone. Click back on my SmartArt and they reappear. So if I want to change the appearance of this, if I click on SmartArt design, you can see that there's a change color. And I can also change the style. So let's start out with color. If I click on change color, I can point to these and preview changes to the color. And I actually like this one, just something simple, dark background with white font. And then if I look at styles, and if I click on this more button, I can change, sorry, I'm having a problem with my voice today. I can change the style, and you can see I can preview the various styles just by pointing, and they change. Some of these have kind of like a glass or glossy look to them. Some of them are angled in kind of funky ways. I personally find anything that makes it difficult to read something is not a good idea for a tutoring session, but that's just me. So I typically just keep it simple, right? And if you say, well, the font is too small, now what do I do? Well, you can see that my SmartArt is selected. If I go to my home tab, I can increase the font size. And that is SmartArt. So once again, I started with a title only slide. I went to insert, SmartArt, excuse me, browse through, make your selection, click OK, start typing, and then you can come here to change the color, etc. All right, I am not going to go obviously through another SmartArt, just wanted to just kind of do a quick overview of those steps again. All righty. Right, so I'm going to go back to my sample template, the one that I started out showing you this morning with the welcome lesson 1. Here is my agenda that we just created in our new template. Let's say I want to create this section. Let's say we're going to introduce seasons, and I have here a seasons section. placeholder. I have season slides with animated text for the 4 seasons. I have a seasons video, and I want to take you through the creation of these slides. And as I go through it, what we're going to do is we're going to look at inserting text boxes, inserting pictures, changing pictures, which is a great time saver, duplicating slides, and inserting videos. So lots of really good techniques that you can use as you build out your presentation or your template for your presentation. So I have my agenda. I have today's date. I have the homework review. And let's say after the homework review, we want to cover the 4 seasons. So I want a section, and you don't have to have sections in your presentations clearly, but I actually like sections because they just define for me and for my student what we're transitioning to. It's a great reminder for me, keeps me on track, and it's also, I think, great for folks to come to learn that when they see a slide that looks like that, it's introducing a transition to another topic. Anyhow, so that's me. But I can actually, in addition to clicking on new slide and making a selection, I can also just duplicate a slide. So if I click on this slide and I want another section, I can select duplicate. And now for this one, I can just type in, oops, typing is not my strength clearly, seasons, and I can start working from here. So now I have my season section introduction. And now I want to create a slide that looks like this. And I'm going to build it from scratch from a blank slide. So it's going to need a header, text boxes, and pictures. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to insert a new blank slide and show you how to insert a text box. So your insert tab is just, a treasure trove of options for you to insert pictures and text boxes and links and videos and audios and shapes and SmartArt and on it goes. So here though, if I just have a slide that I have used all the placeholders for the text, or I deleted them, or I just opened a blank slide, I could always add text with a text box. So I come to the insert tab, I click on text box. I come down to my slide, and what I'm doing now is clicking and dragging to create a text box. And I'm going to type in seasons. Now you may remember when we went to the Slide Master, I set up all of the rules for font sizes and color, etc. Those settings do not affect your text boxes. They're kind of independent of each other. Placeholders is what you are defining the text for when you're in the Slide Master. When you create a text box, you're on your own, which is not such a bad thing. But here you can see that the font is quite small, and I'm just going to enlarge it, and maybe I'll bold it, and maybe I'll click and drag the outer edge here and move it up. And there is my placeholder. My text box. Now it's a little plain, right? And I can dress it up, and you'll notice that right now to the right of the help tab, there are no additional tabs. I click on that text box though, and I have shape format. So if I want to very quickly change the appearance of this, I can click on shape format, and I have here shape styles. And I love it when I have a gallery of options. So I'm going to click on the more button, open up that gallery, and do a quick preview to say, is there anything here that Microsoft created for me that I would just like to use? And I think I'll select that one. And if you said, well, I don't really like any of those colors, what can I do then? Well, adjacent to the styles is shape fill. And here you can just opt for a different color. All right. So now that I have my text box, I now want to insert pictures, and I'm going to start by going to insert pictures, and I want to look for a winter scene. Now you'll notice that when I click on pictures, a menu open, device, images, stock images, and online pictures. So this device means any picture you have saved to your PC or whatever device you're working on, you can insert in your presentation. I don't happen to have any winter scenes on my device. I could go to stock images, and stock images are relatively new. I don't believe they're available in 2016 version, so I'm going to skip over those. And let's just go to online pictures. And there you're, of course, you're going to find a wealth of wonderful, good quality photos and images. So online pictures is where I'm headed. And in the search field up here at the top, I'm simply going to type in winter and press enter. And I have all these beautiful winter scenes. And as I scroll through, you'll see that more pictures will load. I've never tested the limits of this, but I think you can do this for quite some time. So there are a lot of options to choose from. And just to keep it simple for this presentation, I'm just going to select a scene. You'll notice a checkbox appears in the upper right-hand corner of my selected scene or picture. And down here it says insert one. If, let's say, you needed more than one picture, you can select two. And now it says insert two. I see two check marks, one here, one here. And I can always deselect by clicking on the little checkbox. And now it's just back to insert one. When I'm ready and I have the one or more photos that I need to work with selected, I simply click on insert, and there is my photo. Once again, if you're working in the newer version, you have all these gorgeous options here in the design area to choose from. But again, I'm not going to use design ideas because not everyone has the latest version of PowerPoint. So now I have this beautiful scene. It's way too large for my slide, so I'm going to size the picture. And once again, when I click on a photo, I see these sizing handles, these little circles around the border. And I want to click and drag on a corner. And by clicking and dragging on a corner, I'm maintaining the aspect ratio. So as I increase or decrease the height, the width will proportionally adjust. If I click on just the outer edge, I'm going to distort the image, right? I'm sure you guys know that. So I'm going to stick to clicking and dragging on a corner of the photo. And that will ensure that I don't distort the image. All right, so there is my winter scene. I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on insert, picture. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Picture, online picture. And I want to search for spring, typing in spring, selecting a photo, and clicking insert. Clicking on one of the four corners and dragging to size it. And now I have winter and spring, and maybe I'll make this a little bit larger. And there you have it. So I have my two photos. Now, just as I said for other objects, like clicking on a text box, I can click on a photo and you'll notice a contextual tab appears. It says picture format. And I can now take a look at styles. And these galleries of styles, there's styles for SmartArt, there's styles for text boxes, styles for just about anything. You click on, really fast and easy way to select a preset change or modification to your image to just enhance it a little bit. Right now, these pictures look a little flat. Click on it, click on the more button, open the gallery, and I can preview. Just really, it's just so fast and easy. Something that might make the picture pop a little bit, add some dimension, make it look like an old photo, kind of on an angle. So lots of neat options. So maybe I'll just add this white border. And let's say I want the same thing for the photo adjacent to it. Click on white border. And if I knew in advance that I want the same style for the two photos, I'm going to undo this. I can click on the first photo, use my control key, hold it down, click on the second, then go to picture format, then make a selection. And I've now formatted two pictures at once. And I'm going to click both, and I'm using my down arrow on my keyboard just to move these down a little bit on the slide. Okay, so now I have my two photos, and oops, I'm trying to click on this text here. I did not do that well. I just want to drag it below. Okay, so now I want to insert text boxes, and I want to type the word winter above the winter scene and spring above the spring scene. So click on insert, text box, click and drag, type winter. Again, because this is a text box, I have to format this. And let's say I've done a whole bunch of formatting on that text box, and I know that I want the exact same formatting for the spring text box, or the text box where I'll type spring. I can simply click on this text box, right click and copy, or use Control C, and then paste with Control V, or right click and paste. And now I have a text box with the same formatting, and all I have to do is highlight winter and start typing spring. All right, anything to save a little time, especially if you're looking for consistency and you want the same format, copy paste might be a really easy way to go. Okay, so there you have my slide. Now, when I'm presenting this to my students and I'm in presentation mode, I don't want the word winter and spring, or the words winter and spring, to display. I want to be able to control those text boxes and have them come onto the screen when I'm ready to present them. So I want to animate them. So let's jump into a little bit of animation. So I'm going to click on the text box for winter. That's the first thing that I want to animate. And generally speaking, you should animate or select objects and animate them in the order in which you want to have them appear on the screen, or have them exit the screen, because you have animations that remove things from your screen as well. So here I'm going to select the first object that I'd like to animate, which is the winter text box, and I'm going to go to the Animations tab. So here's another gallery and a More button, right, which is going to open up all of the different animation options. Microsoft categorizes animations for us. The very first category is none. So if you want to remove animation from an object, you select it and click none. Then they have a grouping here of entrance animation. So you want something to come onto the screen that's not there already. They have emphasis, and emphasis animations will take something already on your screen and have it spin or teeter or pulse or do something, right? So it's a little emphasis. And then there are exit animations that take something on your slide and have it fly off, disappear, fade out, etc. And it leaves, right? It exits. So here we're looking, though, to have something enter the slide. So I'm going to say I just wanted to maybe split. So when I'm in presentation mode, and you notice what I'm doing it down here at the bottom when I want to go into slideshow mode. I also call it presentation mode, but Microsoft calls it slideshow. When you want to go into slideshow mode, you can either click this little button down here, and you can see it looks like a projection screen. That will take that particular slide into slideshow mode. Or if you like keyboard shortcuts, Shift F5 will also bring that particular slide, the one you're looking at, into slideshow mode. But I just like to click down over here. So I'm going to click here. And you can see the word winter is not on the slide. And to animate or to initiate or start your animation, you can use your page down key, you can use your down arrow key, or you could just click on the screen and it'll start the animation. So we could be having a discussion about the winter scene, and then when the time is right, I bring the word winter onto the screen. Okay. So now I want to do the same thing for the spring text box. And I don't really remember what I just did. Did I choose wipe, split, float? What did I do? And if you want to just replicate exactly what you just did with this first animation on your slide, click on that animation and then use this button called the Animation Painter. And what the Animation Painter will do when you click on it, so right, I first select winter, and click on Animation Painter, I'm telling PowerPoint that I want to take all of the animation settings that I've applied, and I want to then apply them elsewhere. So I click on Animation Painter. You'll notice that it looks like I have a paintbrush on my cursor. If I click on the spring text box, that text box inherits the settings that are associated with the winter text box. So really fast and easy way to apply and replicate settings from one object to the next. Okay, so now when I go into slideshow mode, there are no words on the screen for the seasons. I press the down arrow, page down, or click, and now I'm controlling the entrance of these words on the screen. So there's a little animation. There's one last feature in this animation discussion, because we're going to have a few more, is when I click on an object, and I'm kind of backtracking to where I started, like a quick click on winter, I selected split. I've applied an animation, but directly to the right of the animation gallery is effect options. And not every animation has effect options. This one does. And you'll notice that vertical in is the direction of the animation, but I have these other choices. I can select horizontal in, horizontal out, and change the direction of the animation. So if I wanted to change it, you can see that it's coming from top to bottom. And I can make whatever change I would like. Just to give you another example, if I were to apply float in, effect options, float in from the bottom or the top, and you can make a decision as to what works best for you. And sometimes it can help because it can support whatever it is you're trying to communicate, the direction that it comes in. All right. All right, so we have 2 more seasons to go. So far we have winter, spring. What about summer and autumn? So I'm going to show you some tips. I'm not going to go through from, build it out from scratch, because we already have this beautiful slide. In my humble opinion, I think it's kind of nice. It's maybe not beautiful. And I need to create another slide really that's almost exactly like it. And in doing this, I'm going to show you some tips, shortcuts, things to save time. So I have slide number 6 over here in my left navigation pane. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate. So now I have 2 identical slides, right? So I'm going to use the second one in the sequence to change this to summer and fall or autumn. All right. So all I had to do was edit, right? I'm not adding text box, not adding title, etc. I'm just going to keep all of that. And here I want to change the picture, of course, to summer. Now I could go to insert pictures, etc., and search. And then I have to size it, and maybe I have to then put style on it, and all that takes a little bit of time. So instead, what I'm going to do, and this is your shortcut, I'm going to right click on the picture, and I want to go to change picture. And I want to change, I'm going to look on at my online sources. And I want to look for a summer, searching for summer picture. And you can see here again, many options. And maybe I'll just select, what really says summer here? Let's see. I shouldn't be so fussy. Maybe I'll just, I'll select this. Maybe. All right. My point in doing this, even though I don't love the photo that I selected, is when you right click on a picture and you select a new photo, you're really changing the photo. It sits in the same footprint. I didn't have to size it. I didn't have to put a frame around it. It inherits the style of the picture that I'm replacing, as well as the footprint. Sometimes the footprint will be a little bit different. It might be a little bit wider, a little bit taller, but for the most part, saves you time. You don't have to size or do dramatic changes to the size and shape of your picture. So I'll do that again. Right click, change picture from online sources. This time I'm going to look for pictures of fall. Make a selection, click insert, and there it is. And you can see this one is actually a little bit, it's not as wide as the photo it replaced. And there you have it. Now here's the other beauty. This slide, when I duplicated the slide, inherited the animation. So if I go into presentation mode or slideshow mode, there's summer and autumn. So super easy. I started out by right click, duplicate. Once I had two identical slides, I started modifying text boxes and right clicking and changing pictures. All right, so hopefully you'll find those to be time savers. All right, so we have our seasons slides. Now we want to insert a video. And I want to insert the video after this summer and autumn slide. So I'm going to click on the summer and autumn slide, go to my home tab, new slide, and I want title only. And this one, again, maybe I'll title seasons. And I want to insert a video. So back to my insert tab. And on the far right, we have video. Let me just move my image down here. Video, when I click on it, it has a menu. So again, if you had videos on your PC that you wanted to use, you can click on this device. Stock videos, I'm pretty sure, once again, are relatively new to some of the later versions of PowerPoint, but of course you have online videos. Now, when you're in PowerPoint and you click on online videos, it wants to know the address of the video. So some of the earlier versions of PowerPoint actually allow you to search for a video from here. But in the current version, I actually have to go get the address or the URL for the video and paste it here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my browser. I'm going to go to my cute little seasons video that I found. And all I'm going to do is click in the address field. I'm going to do that again. You'll notice when I click in the address field way up here, it turns blue, which means it's selected. And I can right click and copy or use Control-C. And then all I need to do is head over to PowerPoint and paste it in the URL field or the address field. It will automatically go out, grab that video. All I need to do is click Insert. You can see that down over here in the lower right. And I now have my seasons video. Now, for some reason, this particular video comes in this tiny little postage stamp size and forces me to kind of click and drag it out, make it a little bit larger. And it actually gets a little fuzzy in doing that, but as soon as I go to play it, it gets nice and clear. All right, so I could even make it a little bit large. Oops. I can make it a little bit larger and center it. And both the title looks a little bland and the video kind of placeholder down here, it looks a little bland. So if I click on the title seasons, remember contextual tab, shape format, maybe I'll click that and select color. And if I click on the video and click on video format, you can see this is a contextual tab just for your video. Click on a style, and maybe I want to. Now, when I go into presentation mode or slideshow mode, all I need to do is click and the video will start. All right, I'm going to press escape, which, by the way, escape is how you very easily just come out of slideshow mode and back to what is known as the normal view. So once again, go find your video, then create a slide and insert video online videos is how you can set up a YouTube video or some other video that you have access to. All right, so I'm going to go back to my sample template, and this is the one that I've been using kind of as the basis for the design of the slides I'm demonstrating for you. And so you can see here, these were season slides I had created, seasons video. And as I scroll down through, there's a section that was a standard in my lessons for vocabulary. So I have the section introduction slide. I had, this slide just as a reminder, excuse me, to my student. Just as a reminder to add words to his dictionary. And following that, I would present a slide that looks like this. And I had a very simple table where I would list out the words from a story we were about to read and the definitions of each of the words that I thought may be new to my students. So when I'm in slideshow mode, you can see how this looks. So I would first present the words, ask him if any were new. He would tell me which were new. And then we would go over the definitions. I never wanted to make an assumption that, all of these words were new to him. So I created this little shape that sits on top of half of my my table and blocks out the definition until I'm ready. And then I use animation to have the rectangle just move out of the way. All right, so I'm going to show you how to build these slides. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, let's add, words to, or add words to your dictionary slide. So once again, I'm going to right click, copy slides that I like, go to my presentation. So we only right now are up to seasons. And I want to, just as a reminder, if I want to ensure that I bring over the exact formatting, I'm not going to paste using destination theme, but rather source. And then I'm going to get the exact same slide formatted in exactly the same way, same color, etc. All right. I would also like to insert a section slide. So I'm going to come over here to Home tab, New Slide, Section Header, and I'm going to click and type in vocabulary. And then I have this neat slide, and then I'm going to go to New Slide, and I want to insert a table, and I can click on Title and Content. And each one of these are, again, layouts that are designed by Microsoft to kind of help you, get started. If I click on Title and Content, it has a title area where I can type in, lesson vocabulary. And I can move this up. I can click on Shape Format, click on Styles, make my selection. Maybe I could go to the Home tab and maybe make that a little bit larger. And then I want to insert a table. And you'll probably have seen this before, but there are these little icons sitting in some of the placeholders that Microsoft provides us. And you'll notice this one looks like a table. This one's a chart. That one is SmartArt. And all these are shortcuts to the very same options that are available to you on your Insert tab. So I could insert a table from here and tell it how many columns and rows I want and click OK. Or I can come up here to the Insert tab, click on Table, and I can use this grid to select the number of columns and rows. So if I click on the Insert tab and click on Table, the way you use this grid is you point to, and I'm not clicking yet, I'm just pointing to on the grid, showing it the number of columns and rows that you would like. So I now have the number of columns and rows that I would like, maybe 2 by 6. And you can see at the top of the grid, it tells me 2 by 6. I click, and now I have the table on the slide. You'll notice that 2 contextual tabs are available: Table Design and Layout, and Styles, right? So Styles can just get me very quickly to totally different appearance for my table. And if I scroll down, you can see there are many. Maybe I'll just go with a green, shades of green. Now, I'm going to create a simple table that has an area for the word that I type, and then an area for the definition. And typically the definition is going to require more space and a wider column than the word. So I could actually just click in the center here. You'll notice if I position my cursor just right, I now have a 2-headed arrow. And it's showing me like 2 bands in the center and then 2 arrows pointing left and right. And if I click when I see that and drag over to the left, I've now changed the width of my columns. I also may think, you know what, I'm going to just make this font size larger. And actually the whole table expands. I can click and drag on the outer corner, pull it, make it and maybe a little bit wider, and so on it goes. And I can start typing in words. So what did I have in the other table? Yeah, recipe, celebrity, etc. So I can type in the words and, you know, just go down the column, type in my definitions. And what I usually did was copy and paste, right? So if I was using a dictionary with some simple definitions, I would, as a starting point, copy paste a definition and then maybe edit it down to something that was something that I thought was appropriate and manageable for my student. Okay, so let's say I had all of my words and I had all of my definitions typed in, and I now want to hide the definitions and animate that rectangle. So just as a reminder, this is what I want to do. I want to create this blue, dark blue rectangle that I can animate and reveal the definitions. So I'm going to go back to my vocabulary slide, and I want to go to the Insert tab. So far we've seen insertion of picture, insertion of video. Let's do an insertion of a table. So let's now do an insertion of a shape. So when I click on shape, the gallery just automatically opens up, and there are many, many shapes to choose from. And if I just want a simple rectangle, I can just simply click here, but you'll notice there's a whole bunch of neat things like arrows and smiley faces, and looks like a little post-it note and a heart, a sun, a moon. There are also banners and stars and speech balloons, these call outs down here. So lots of really neat things that you can add to your slides. I'm just going to do a simple rectangle. They all work in exactly the same way. So I'm going to click on rectangle, and you can see a plus sign. And if I click and drag on my screen, I now have a rectangle. And it happens to be blue, and that might be fine. But what happens if you want to change the appearance of your shape? Well, there's my shape format contextual tab. Here is my styles gallery, presets courtesy of Microsoft, right? Where I can just choose a color that I'd like to use. And now all of my definitions are hidden. So when I'm in slideshow mode, we can look at the words, but the definitions are hidden. So how do I animate this and make it go away when I'm ready? Well, just as we did with the objects that we wanted to enter the screen, I can click on this rectangle, click on animations. Now I don't want the rectangle to enter. I don't want emphasis. I want to scroll down and I want an exit. So maybe I just wanted to split and leave the screen. So now when I'm in slideshow mode and I'm clicking again down here on this little projection screen icon, we go over all the words, we're ready to talk about definitions. I press my page down, my down arrow, or I click on the screen and I now reveal all the definitions, of course, that I haven't yet typed. So I'll show you the only fussy kind of element of this technique is that if I wanted to edit a definition, now what? They're all covered. But I would just have to click and drag it out of the way, right? And then click in here. So this can become a little fussy at times, but easy enough to do. So if you like that technique to hide information on the screen, I found it came in really handy. Okay. Actually, the other thing that I want to show you, and just to keep things simple here, I'm just going to delete that rectangle, is just wanted to point out to you that it is really easy for you to add rows and insert rows, as well as insert it or delete columns. So if I were to click in this row, and I'm not being specific about where I can click in the first column, second column, doesn't matter. But if I right click, I have access to insert and delete. And if I click on insert, it gives me lots of options. I can insert a column to the left, column to the right, row above, row below. So let's say I want a row above, and there you have it. If I click on that row and I want to get rid of it, I can right click and I can go to delete and delete a row. Same thing with the column. If I want to insert, right click, insert, column to the right. Want to delete that column, right click, delete, delete column. Now, in addition to having the right click option, I can also click and come up here to my layout. This is a contextual tab, right? Table design and layout. Design is where we got the color. Layout is where we can modify columns and rows. That same delete button is here. Delete a column, delete a row. Just wants you to tell it what you want to do. And then adjacent to the delete, there's this little group, insert above, below, insert left, insert right. So I can insert columns and rows from here. I can right click and insert from here. Same thing for delete. Okay, so let's keep going. So we've created our vocabulary table, right? We replicated this in our new template. Next thing I want to show you is how to create shapes and links. So I showed you one shape already. I'm going to show you another one with a link inside of it. And this one is designed to launch a website where I've created a vocabulary matching game where you're matching words to definitions. All right. So you can see here in the one I had created as our sample, if I point here and click, it's going to take me out to the game that I created. So let's go ahead and I'll walk you through how to do this. So I'm going to come out of this. I'm going to go back to the presentation that we are working on. And I'm going to insert a new slide. And this one I'll insert, maybe I'll just start with a blank. All right, so the first thing I want to do is create a shape. And you don't have to, your links can sit in a text box. They could sit in a shape. They can sit in a placeholder. They have to have a home, but it doesn't have to be a shape. I'm just going to use shapes. All right, so I'm going to go to insert, click on shape, and I'm going to create a little arrow. So I'm going to click on arrow. And then whenever you, or I should say following your shape selection, you want to come out to your slide and you want to click and drag. And you'll notice if I click and drag down, it's wider. Click and drag to the right, it's longer. So you can kind of determine the height and width of your shape simply by clicking and dragging. So now I have this blue arrow. And let's say I want to change it up a little bit. I can always check out my styles. Again, this is the contextual shape format tab. Click on the more arrow, take a look at all my options. And I can also, though, change the appearance of this by changing the shape fill. And have a whole bunch of options here. And maybe I'll use green. And I can come down to shape outline, and maybe I want the outline to be a darker shade of green. And the outline is really thin. If I wanted it to be a little bit more prominent, I can click on outline a second time. You'll notice that the palette of color is at the top, but down here there are weights. So I can make the outline a little bit bolder. And I now have a shape, color, and style that I'm comfortable with. Now, if I were to insert another shape, maybe I'll just do this heart. It's going back to that blue. Let's say I want all my shapes from this point forward in this presentation to be this light green with the dark green border. Well, how do I do that? Well, I just deleted the heart and I'm going to right click on the arrow and I'm going to say, make this the default shape, which just means default colors. So if I set as default shape, now watch what happens when I go to insert, shapes, go to the heart, and now it looks exactly like this in its color and border. Its fill color and the border. So there you have it. So really easy way if you want to achieve some consistency and save some time throughout your presentation, right click, set as default, and every shape you insert from that point forward will be identical in its color and border. All right, so shapes are great just to point to things on a screen, let's say with an arrow, but you can also type in them. So if I say I want to create a link, and it's going to say click here to go to, I need a typing lesson if anyone has one available. Click here to go to word wall, and I want to maybe go to home, make that a little bit larger. And now I want to create a link to a game. So I want to select this text and I want to go to my insert tab and I want to create a link. I first though need the URL. I need the address to that particular website. So I'm going to go back to my browser. This is the game I want to link to. Click in the address field. You may remember we did exactly the same thing for the video. It's highlighted in blue. I'm going to Control-C to copy, and then I'm going to head back here to PowerPoint, insert tab, link, insert link. At the top of the screen, text to display. This is telling me that this is going to become the clickable link. Click here to go to word wall. And down here is the address, and I'm going to paste the address down here. And clicking on these words is going to launch this website. Click OK, and I now have a clickable link. So when I'm in slideshow mode, I simply click and go out to my game. And this, by the way, WordWall is a website where you can create a profile. You can create as many as 5 or 6, I believe. I don't remember, I apologize. Free games. It also has a community where you can just search for different games on different topics, different, whatever it is that you're teaching, you know, whether it's, you know, nouns, verbs, irregulars, whatever it is, there's probably a game out there that someone in the community is willing to share. And you can also create your own. So this is one that I had created. And there's so many formats for the games. There's matching, quizzes. You can see here that there's lots of different formats for games that you can create. But this one, if I just click start, it just goes ahead and it starts presenting, you know, I help students with new things. And what might that be? A teacher. And then it advances to the next and it continues on. Gives you feedback. And this is something you can also send links to these games, obviously, to your students, and they can play them, you know, as a part of homework practice on their own. All right, but here I've created this link to WordWall. I also want to point out to you, when you're in slideshow mode, and I place my cursor over the link, the little hand shows up, and all I have to do is click. If you wanted to launch this from the normal view, right, you may remember that this view is called normal. If I point to the link, it's not going to launch on its own, but if I press Control and then click, so Control is a key on my keyboard and then click with the mouse, that's how it'll take me out. So if you're not in slideshow mode, Control click will get you there. All right. So what I showed you on this slide is creation of a shape, creation of a default shape, and the insertion of the link. And just to say again, the link could sit in a text box, doesn't have to be in a shape. It could be any phrase or no phrase at all. It could just be the actual URL. So if I wanted to paste, the URL, I don't have to do anything fancy, just click. So completely up to you. It's kind of nice. I think the words are a little bit more visually appealing, but if you're in a rush, you can also just copy and paste an address onto your slide. All right, so the next thing I want to show you guys how to do is something that I think is really cool. It has, I think, some limited application, but could come in really handy. So let's say you're having a really difficult time explaining to your students how to use the chat window in Zoom, or how to, if they're going to play a game on their own, how to play a game, let's say on WordWall, as we just saw. Or you want to demonstrate where they're going to click, etc., to maybe use Google Classroom. You can make these short recordings, they're called screen recordings, right from PowerPoint. And just to give you an idea here, I'm going to go into slideshow mode. I made this little recording of how to play a word wall game. And if I click on the arrow down here to play, the play button. So to access and play a word wall game, you want to start out by clicking the link that I've provided, and that will take you to a browser window that looks like this, where you can click on a start button. All right, so you get the idea. It captured my voice and it captured all of my actions on the screen. So you're looking at a little video recording that you can make directly from PowerPoint. And I think things like this are just super cool. So it could even be, let's say your students are having a hard time saving files that you send them in an email. You can, send them a recording of the steps that it takes. So I'm going to go back to our presentation. This is the one that I've been building with you in this session. And I'm going to insert a new slide. And I think I'll just select a title slide. And this would be how to play a game in WordWall. All right, so the first thing you want to do is, after you type your title, is you want to make sure that whatever you want to record, whether it's something in Zoom, something on a website, that particular page is ready to go. So right now, if I go to my browser, the WordWall game is not ready to go. Here it is. So you want to make sure that that's ready, so that when you start, you can go directly to an open window and you can start taking actions, start talking and recording. So back here at my blank slide, I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and way over here in this media group, we saw video. There's also audio. You can click on audio and start talking and create an audio recording, but screen recording is what I'm demonstrating here. So I'm going to click on screen recording. Now it actually took me to the last screen that I was on, but if this is not what I was recording, I could always move around and go to it. But what it wants me to do now, you see this cross on my screen, I'm circling it around so you can see it. It wants me to click and drag and highlight the area that I want to include in the recording. Then it has a record button. It also has buttons here where I could say, I don't want audio. I'm going to click that off, or I'm going to click it on. I can record my pointer or not, and I think recording your pointer is helpful. And then when I start recording, it's going to count me down, get me ready, and here I go. So I could say in this recording, whatever explanation is needed, click on the link that I sent you. It will bring you here. Look for the start button, click start. Read each definition that appears on the screen. This first one is, I help students learn new things. And then I could explain to the students that they have to look at the bottom, find the match, click on it, etc. So whatever is necessary for the explanation. And when you're done, if you point to the top of your screen, this little panel appears where I could pause, I can stop, and I'm going to stop. And it appears something's a little frozen. There it goes. That was weird. And now when I go back to PowerPoint, and again, this is the one that I've been working on with you guys, I see that this is kind of blocking my title. So I'm going to move things around, maybe make this a little bit smaller, and I can play this. So I could say in this recording, whatever explanation is needed, click on the link that I sent you. It will bring you here. Look for the start button. All right, and there you have it. And I personally think that is just super amazing and incredibly helpful in some very specific scenarios. Now you may say, well, how is it going to help my students if it's stuck here in a PowerPoint? I could send them the PowerPoint, but they may not have PowerPoint. They may not be able to launch and see this. But I could actually right click and save media as, and I could save this as a, what was that, under a minute, a 30-second video. And I can email it to my students, or I can send them a link to it if you're working with Google Classroom or Google Drive. But I'm just going to save this to the desktop. I'm going to call it sample video and click save. So if I go to my desktop, my sample video is here. So it becomes an independent little video, and I can copy and paste this in Google Drive and send a link from there, or I can just link to this or attach it like I attach any document to an email for my students, and they can just double click on it and the media. So I could say in this recording, whatever, all right, and their media player will launch and they can watch the video so that they can have your voice and your instruction sent to them, outside of outside of a presentation. But, sometimes, in the early days, if you want them to go to Google Classroom while they're with you in the classroom and they forget how to click, and if you have a pre-recorded little screen recording in PowerPoint, you can show them the clicks. And the same thing for Zoom. Early on, to help folks find their way, I had recordings of how to open a chat window and just play them real quickly while I'm with the students so that they can find their way to the chat window. So once again, super simple. First thing you want to do is make sure that you have either the browser window or the application, whatever you're recording, ready, right? It should be open in the background. And to keep things simple, make that application or browser window the last thing that you click on before you come to PowerPoint. And when you're in PowerPoint, all you need is a new slide. And you want to go to Insert, Screen Recording, show what it is that you want to capture, the area, and then click Record. So that took me to my desktop because that was the last area that I was working on before I clicked. All right, so hopefully you'll find a use for that particular feature. Okay, the next thing I'm going to jump into is an animation technique. And if you've ever seen someone display one bulleted item at a time on the screen, that's really a feature that's kind of like a little bit hidden in the animation, on the animation ribbon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of these bullets, right, or take this grouping of bullets and apply this animation where each one of the bulleted items comes onto the screen independent of the rest. All right, so first thing I'm going to do to prep this is go to animation and strip out all of the animation. So right now, when I click on this text box, which is just a simple either placeholder or text box that I built with a list of items. And if I click on the outer border, I'm selecting the entire object, go to my animations tab, and I'm going to select wipe. So the first thing that happens is the entire list, if I go into slideshow mode, watch what happens. They all come on the screen and they wipe from the bottom to the top. So the first thing I want to modify is the direction of the wipe. So if I click on Effect Options, I can say, nope, I want them to wipe from left to right. They're still, though, going to animate as a group, and that's still not quite where I want to be. So selecting that same object and coming back to effect options, you'll notice there's an option down here called by paragraph. Now, if I click on by paragraph, that will automatically animate each one of the bullets independent of the rest. So it's item 1, 2, 3, and I'm using my down arrow to navigate. Press escape to come back. So a couple of things. I mentioned earlier that after you select an animation for your object, effect options is not always available, right? So not every animation has effect options. Not every animation has by paragraph. So you want to, don't get discouraged if you select an animation and it doesn't have by paragraph as an option. But simple ones like split and wipe will, and you can very easily then go to effect options, select the direction and the sequence. All right, so by paragraph is the way to go. All right, so still talking a little bit more about animation, just wanted to share this one with you where I used, they're called call outs or speech balloons, and those are shapes, and I inserted a bunch of shapes. I typed in them, so we already saw that technique, and then I animated them to come in and have the student respond and tell me whether these sentences were past or present. So that was a really simple one to do. And of course, you can, once you have that slide built with the animation and the call outs, etc., and you want to use it for something else, you simply copy or create a duplicate or copy and paste it into your current lesson and start editing for any topic. It could be identifying, proper use of a word, could really be, it's pretty endless. Or maybe it could be a conversation. What would you say after, someone says this, maybe, respond in this way, etc., and give voice to maybe 2 characters on your screen, and so on. All right. This was another one that I used pretty extensively where I would just simply, fill in the blank, a very simple phrase. And this is not a necessarily very pretty slide, but it was very effective. And I would have, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these in any given lesson. And all I would do for each lesson is edit the sentence and edit the options. And we would just kind of go through a drill. I purchased a bag of, student would tell me 1, 2, or 3, and then I would animate a little frame to frame out the correct response. Here's one that's even, more simple, plain looking than the last, and then fill in the blank, etc., and so on it goes. So I'm going to show you just really quickly how to build this slide. And I'm going to just copy it and bring it into the sample template that we're building and working on. And I'm going to paste it. And I did a simple paste because I knew that this was so plain. There was nothing special I needed to carry forward. So I didn't have to use the paste option, keep source formatting. Okay, so to create this slide, I inserted a text box. I typed in fill in the blank. And I don't know why I did this, but I inserted 3 text boxes, one for fill in the blank, one for the sentence with the blank, and then one for the choices. And you could actually put all of this text in one text box, just press your enter key and keep typing. So I created, 3 text boxes. So I'm going to delete that little shape. So this text box just has the numbered items. So if I wanted to change this out, to another sentence, I would simply, for the next, exercise or practice, highlight this, delete it, create the blank in the appropriate spot, and then number and insert the responses. So super simple to do. So what I would then do is then duplicate it and create, many, many practice slides. So how do I create that little frame that frames up the correct response? So I'm going to start out by inserting a shape and a rectangle. And there's my default, right, with the green border. and the light green fill color, but I don't want any color. And if I put this over here, it actually blocks out the text. So what I want to do is remove the fill color. So I can come here to my contextual tab, shape format, shape fill, and say no fill. And I could also, if I don't want my default, right, I set a default for shapes, but I can override that with any modification. And maybe I want to make this red. And you may remember I have weight. And I can change that. So now if I frame out any one of the responses, right, it is transparent, the fill, and you can see the words through it. Kind of essential, right? So now the next step is, because if I put this in slideshow mode, you already know the answer. I can now animate this so that it comes on the screen, the frame comes on the screen when I'm ready. So I click on animate, maybe I click on split, and there you have it. Fill in the blank, number one, and then go to the next and so on. And when I was building this out initially, build the first one out exactly the way you want it. And then just start right-clicking and duplicating the slides. You know, I have blank, and let's get this out. Oh no, my apologies. I have, let's say 3, and then we can edit this to say dog. And then simply click and drag on your frame and place it over the correct response. Right click, duplicate slide, etc., and keep going. And I just found this to be extremely easy, fast, and effective with my student. We also did, you know, I had a whole series of, you know, just as another example, you know, to identify the synonym for the underlined word. And there was a sentence, an underlined word, and then a list of words to choose from. And he would select, you know, the synonym. So anyhow, lots of really cool things that you can do and just build right into your PowerPoint presentation. All right. The thing that I'm going back to here, so I'm back on my season slide that I created earlier, but I'm coming back here just to show you a tool built into PowerPoint to help you align objects on a screen, whether they're titles, text boxes, pictures, shapes, whatever it is. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to misalign my title. And I'm going to click on shape format. And if I want this centered on the slide, there is an align button here, and I can align center. You'll notice I can align left, center, right, top, middle, etc. So really fast and easy way to get something dead center. I can also, when I click and drag, you'll notice that there's a little dotted red line that basically tells me that the center of my object is aligned with the center of the slide. And you can see that it's aligned with 0, which is center of the slide. I could use my arrow up key once I have it centered to make that a little bit higher. But this is aligning a object to the center of the slide. But you can also, let's say that I have these two pictures and I want to align them so that they're on the same horizontal plane. So if I select the two of them, again, clicking on one, pressing my control key, selecting the second one, go to picture format, there's that align. And if I align them top, they're now both perfectly aligned at the top. And now I can use my down arrow and just move them down. And I could know that they are on the same plane. I can also use my arrow key to move this over, not disturbing the alignment at the top. And I can move this over. Okay, so you can align objects to each other, selecting two and going to align, right? Align top, align bottom. I can do that with text boxes to each other. Shape format, align, align top. They must have already been at the same level because they didn't move. If I had 3 or more items, I could select them And using align, you can also ensure that the distribution, right, align middle, align center, where you see there are multiple items, will ensure that, you know, 3 or more items have the same spacing between each, and so on. So this align button, when I discovered it, I just found that extremely helpful. There are also red lines that appear on your screen. You can see as I move this up and down, it's showing me when I'm aligned. But that could be a little fussy if you're not really skilled with a mouse and you're trying to control it. And it's like, did I get it? Am I going to miss it? Is it on the right spot? Using the align button is less fussy. It's kind of, in my opinion, more deliberate. Just select 2 things and say align them instead of trying to do it manually. But the little red lines are there to guide you if you're skilled at using your mouse to align things as well. Last thing that I want to point out is I can center objects on a slide. I can align them to each other, but I could also change the text position within an object. So if I wanted seasons to be centered on the object or within the object, select the outer border, go to my home tab, and just use these simple paragraph settings, right, left, center, right. And if I click on center, it's in the center. Same is true for these 2, center. And there you have it. So center text within a box, you want to be on your home tab, just manipulating text, right? These are text settings, paragraph. If you want to center objects on a slide, you want to select the object, go to shape format, and look for a line. All right, hopefully you found that tip helpful as well. All right, so as promised, now that we've gone through techniques using PowerPoint, we're going to transition over to Google Slides, and you're going to find that they're very similar. So there's far less instruction required because I'll just point out to you the features that are same or similar in PowerPoint, meaning those that we just covered, of course. All right, so I'm going to head out over to my browser. So you need to be in a browser to get to Google Slides. You need an account to get to Google Slides. And by an account, really all you need is Gmail. So if you don't have a Gmail account and you think, you know, after seeing Google Slides in just a moment, you'd like to use it, create a Google account, open up a Gmail account. From there, you can get to Google Slides. You can get to other kind of default basic applications like Google Sheets, which is like Excel. It's not Excel, but like Excel. You can get to Google Drive, which is where you can store all of your Google documents and so on. And because you have a Gmail account doesn't necessarily mean you have to use Gmail, right? I actually have a Gmail account that is not my primary account. My primary email is in or through Comcast, and I access it through Outlook. So I have a Gmail account. I use it sometimes, but it is not my primary email. So you can do the same thing. So when I want to go, though, to Google Slides, how do I do it? Well, I could log into my Gmail. Or because I have a Gmail account and I'm already logged in, I can just go to any Google search screen and look for this little grid. And it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube, and it's Google Apps. Just so that you know, though, if you're in Gmail, so if I click on Gmail, there's that little grid. So it's really, you know, any Google application will allow you to click on that little Google Apps Rubik's Cube kind of menu here, and then scroll through until you find Google Slides, and there it is. All right, so the first thing we talked about when we were talking about PowerPoint was themes and templates. Well, guess what? There are themes and templates in Google Slides as well. So you can see here when I'm in Slides, you can see in the upper left-hand corner the word Slides. I can click on blank and just start from scratch. If I click on blank, that's where I can launch into a theme, or I could just stay here and I can check out some of the templates that Google offers. There's a template gallery. Down here, by the way, are all of the slides that and presentations that I've created in and have saved here in Google. And if I was going week after week using the same template that I created in Google Slides, I would actually just go to recent presentation, launch, create a copy of the entire presentation and start editing. So I would open lesson 12, create a copy and start editing for lesson 13, right? So, and I can do that here by just clicking on recent presentations. But let me show you how to start from scratch. So if you don't already have a template in Google Slides, you can check out the template gallery and you can scroll through and you can see that they have these categories, right? There's personal and there's some really good looking presentations. There's work category. There's education category. And one of the templates that I think is kind of cool that you could probably start editing right out of the box is this flashcards. And if I click on it, the template will open. All right. And you can see in the left navigation pane, just like PowerPoint, I can click on a slide that I want to work with. I have a menu bar at the top. So the layout, of course, is different than a, Microsoft desktop application. This is an online application. And online applications in general are leaner. They don't do as much. So you're not going to find everything that you can do in PowerPoint here in Google Slides, but it can do a lot, which is, I think, pretty impressive. So here, though, the navigation is different. This is a menu bar. So when I click on File, I can start a new presentation or start a new one from a template. I can open an existing document. I can make a copy. So if this was, let's say, last week's lesson, and I want to now use it for the current week or the upcoming week, I would click on Make a Copy of the entire presentation, change the name of the document for the current week, and start editing, using all of my sections and everything I had created for the prior week and leverage them for the current week. Okay, so lots that I can do here. The edit menu, right? Cut, paste, copy, undo, redo. View, if I want to go into slideshow mode. Motion is animation. I have an insert tab where I can insert images, text boxes, on and on it goes. You can see here audio, video, tables, shapes, diagrams, word art, etc. I can format, add new slides, arrange things, etc. Tools like spell check. So there's a lot you can do. I can also, though, in addition to using this menu bar, I can always, and I think more conveniently, use the toolbar. So toolbars are the icons that sit below the menu bar. So if I click on something in my slide and I want to modify it, I can check out the toolbar. So let's just go quickly through this in case you're new to Google Slides. When you want to add a new slide, right over here, there's a plus and then a down arrow. And just like PowerPoint, a gallery opens and I can select a layout. Just a title, title and body, right? I can do a comparison here, 2 columns side by side, and I can insert slides from here. So if I want to insert, and there's a new slide. Same thing as PowerPoint, I can right click, I could delete, I can right click, duplicate. And I actually am just going to delete that slide I inserted. I can undo, redo, I can print from here, I can insert text boxes from here, pictures from here, shapes, etc. Change the background, change the layout, right? If I decide I want a different layout, change the theme, and I can change the transition. And transitions are animations that occur as you navigate from slide 1 to slide 2, etc. And animations are the movement of objects on a slide. Transitions is animation from slide to slide. Okay. All right. So just a really quick, a few quick edits that we can do here. If I wanted this to be, let's say I'm going to use this for vocabulary. I take, oh my gosh, I really need a typing lesson. I take any existing text and, like any template, if I don't want it, I can delete it, overwrite it, etc. I don't want this little Spanish 101 text box, so I can just click on it, and press my delete key to remove it. I can go to a slide and read some tips, right? Templates often have tips from the designer, but if I don't need the tip, I can just click on these objects and delete them. So let's say I was doing a lesson on fruit and I wanted just to insert a whole bunch of pictures with fruit. Just as we saw in PowerPoint, where if you want to use the same footprint that a current picture occupies, instead of going to insert picture here, if I want to change the picture or replace the image, that's the language that Google Slides uses, I can search the web and a panel on the right opens up. And in Google Slides, get comfortable with this panel on the right because it will often open up with whatever you've selected. If you wanted to look at themes, you wanted to search for images, it's often going to appear in this panel on the right. So let's say we're doing fruit and I want to look for a pear. Select the picture and click replace at the bottom of the panel. And there's my pear. I have a text box here for pear. I'm sorry, for the dog in Spanish. And if I want to replace that with the word pear, I can do that. And when I'm in presentation mode, so here's slideshow at the top. It says start from the beginning. And if I want to start from the beginning, there's my vocabulary and there's my pear. Now, what would happen though if I wanted to animate the word pear? So the word pear is not on the screen initially, but then appears on the screen. If I click it and come up here and look for animation, I don't see it on the menu bar and I don't see it on the toolbar. So now what am I going to do? One of the things I want to point out to you is that whenever you have 3 dots, really in any application, this is pretty standard. It generally means there are more options. Zoom will often have 3 dots. If it has, depending on the size of your screen, it can't fit everything. 3 dots is just going to reveal more stuff for whatever it is that you're working with. And here, if I click on more, there's Animate. All right, so don't get discouraged. Just look for the 3 dots. And now the panel on the right opens up. And this panel is called Motion. Slide transition is the first section and object animation is the second. It's the lower portion here. And that's what you want. When you want a object like a text box or a picture to animate, you want object animation. Now down here, it actually defaulted to fade in. And what if I don't want fade in? So you can see here it says the word pear is going to fade in on a click, meaning, I, as the presenter, am going to initiate, either click the screen or page down or arrow down. On click actually means more than just clicking the screen. And if I click on this menu though and say, well, I don't want fade in, how about if I want it to fly? And I want it to fly in from the left. At the base of this panel, I have the word play. And now I can click and it flies in. So there's my animation. So animation, once again, you select the object. I can animate the pear. This time the word animate is visible. I don't have to look for the 3 dots. And maybe I want the pear to fly from the right. And now I'm going to play it. And that's weird the way it's not oh, fly out. I actually selected an exit. No wonder I'm confused. I wanted to fly in. My apologies. It wasn't flying in, it was leaving. All right, so now it's gonna click fly in. The word pear is going first, and then the pear comes on the screen. All right, and I would probably want to reverse these, and I can click and drag. You see what I'm doing here? Click and drag this so that the order of the animation matches the order or sequence that I want items to animate. All right, so I'm going to close the panel on the right. That just gives me more real estate on the screen to view my slide. So what did I do here? I opened up a template. I made edits. I used my menu bar and or my toolbar to make changes. And I can just go from slide to slide and start making changes to pictures, inserting maybe a text box where I can type pineapple. Oops. And one of the things I did not have a need so far to share with you is, and this is the same in PowerPoint, that we have sizing handles, right? Those are squares and circles that sit around an object, but we also at the top have a little circle, and it allows me to change the angle of an object, whether it's a picture or a text box. So what I did was I click on this little circle and I can spin it around and change the angle to align with the picture. All right. Last thing to point out here is that you want to give your file a name. So if you're starting from scratch and you want to name it, maybe you want to call it, you know, just lesson 1 vocabulary. You're typing the name up here at the top, and that will automatically save and become a recent presentation. So when you go to Google Slides and you open it up, you'll be able to see in your recent presentations. Actually, sorry, I thought I had Google Slides open. Let me just go here. Apologies, I'm just moving some things around here. I want to close this. So this is now lesson 1 vocabulary. Oops, and it's in my recent. I had to close the presentation, so that's what I was fussing around to get my Zoom controls out of the way so I could close it. But there it is in recent, and I could open it up. And if I wanted to create lesson 2 vocabulary as a second document, let me walk you through how you create a copy of an existing Google Slides document. So I'm going to click here and open it. And let's say this was all the vocabulary for lesson 1, and I want to preserve that. I don't want to overwrite it. So what I want to do is go to File, make a copy of the entire presentation. I want to call it lesson 2. And I would suggest you do this with your template for the entire lesson. Just each time create a copy, give it a name for that lesson, click OK. And now you've added a copy with a new name to your library of presentations. And again, I'm trying to just, for some reason, I can't grab hold of my Zoom controls to move them. There they go. Okay, so now I have lesson 2, and I can start editing. So maybe this week we're working on a completely different topic, different pictures, etc. So that's just one of many ideas for presentations in Google Slides. Let me show you though what would happen if you wanted to use a theme. So this was a template. So if I'm in Google Slides and I want to go to File, New, and I'm going to go to Presentation, I'm going to start out with a blank. Now, themes are something you can choose after you open up a blank presentation. And by default, in the right panel, I have, you can see at the top, themes. And if I start scrolling, and again, similar to PowerPoint, what I'm looking at with themes is color, graphics, font styles, etc. And if I'm starting out to build a template let's say for my lessons for the very first time, I want to look through all these, sample them, take a look, change them up. Maybe I think this one would work well for me if I like, the colors, the layout, the font. If I take a look here at the little down arrow for new slides, I can see these are the preset layouts. Some of them have color in them. If I don't like that one, I can maybe try another one. Check out this one actually has more layouts with some color and graphic. And you can just kind of sample and go through them until you find something that you think is going to work for you, maybe over time for your presentations. Okay. So similar to the slide master, remember I said if you like a template or you like a theme, but yeah, you really don't like the font, or maybe you really don't like the font style or size or color, you can make a change. All right, so if you want to make changes similar to the slide master, what you want to do is go to view. And you may remember that was the same option in PowerPoint. We went to view and we went to slide master. Here, there's something called the theme builder. And it looks just like what we saw in PowerPoint, yeah? So there's a large slide here. Then the various layouts are listed here for further customization, but I can make a selection. I can decide that maybe I want this font to be larger. Maybe the same thing with the bullets. Maybe I want them to be larger. You'll take a look up here. What I'm doing is pretty standard stuff. This is font style. And adjacent to that is font size. Maybe I want everything bold. And I can start making changes. Maybe I want to change the text color, and so on it goes. And then I can work with each one of the layouts and make changes as needed. And what I'm doing here, just to remind you, the slide master and this theme builder allow you to make changes up front so that going forward, you don't have to tweak and modify every slide as you go. So if you don't like the fact that something's in a particular font size, make those changes up front. You'll still, I'm sure, make modifications to your fonts as you work with a slide deck, even after you've changed the theme builder or the slide master in PowerPoint. But this just kind of is going to save some time and eliminate the need to make lots of changes as you go, and you'll make fewer changes. All right, this little X is going to close the theme builder. So what I did here was I went to view theme builder. Okay, so that is, again, very similar to PowerPoint. Select a theme, select the modify the master control for that theme so that you can save some time as you go. So what I'm going to do next is show you how to create the season slides that I created in PowerPoint and how to create them here. And that'll take us through the insertion of text boxes, the application of some animation. And I'm going to start out by closing the themes panel on the right side of the screen. And I'm going to go to insert a slide. So over here in the left corner of the toolbar, I'm going to click on the down arrow and I'm going to select a blank slide. And I don't, in the real world, I would at least insert a slide with a title, but because I want to show you how to build it out from scratch, I'm going to just start with a blank. And here I'm going to click on a text box. I could also go here to insert text box, but this toolbar also has the icon on the screen. Click and drag and type in seasons. And then on my toolbar, when I click on the outer border of the text box, I can change the font style. I can change the font size. I can make it bold. If I continue on here, you can see that I can use alignment options. I can center this on the screen, line spacing, paragraphs, bullets, etc. And all the way down here, I have the More button for format options and animation. So I can make standard changes to the font right here. I can also use this little paint can for fill color. So maybe I want to use green for a fill color, and there I have my season's title. Next thing I want to do is insert pictures. So if I want to insert from scratch, remember when I showed you how to insert the pear, the picture of the pear? I right-clicked on the dog picture and I was able to go out and change and replace the picture. But here I don't have anything to replace. So obviously I'm going to go to insert from scratch and I'm going to search the web. Panel on the right opens up and I'm going to type in winter. Select an image. At the bottom of the panel, I have insert. And same thing that I did in PowerPoint, I want to size it. And I'm using the corner of the image to size it so I don't distort it. I'm going to go back and I want to insert now a picture of spring or for spring. Select it, click insert, and size it. And then I want to go and insert text boxes, and I want to type the word winter. And I want to make that a little bit larger. Maybe I'm going to bold it. And then just as I did in PowerPoint, I can copy and paste a copy of that text box. And I use Control-C and Control-V as in Victor, and then type spring. And then I would like to animate just as I did. So I'm going over the same steps. I want to animate the winter text box. So I'm going to select it and I'm looking for the more button. And there's animate. Coming down here to object animation. And maybe I would like it to fly in from the top. And I'm going to play it just to see what it looks like. So it's not on the screen. I click and there it is. It comes from the top. And then I would like to do the same for spring. So I have to click, in this case, add an animation. So selecting spring, add animation. And I would like this one to fly in from the top. And now I'm going to click play. And now click, and comes winter, click, and comes spring, and click. So you get out of the review of the animation. So now if I go to slideshow and move myself out of the way, and I press my down arrow or click on the screen or the page down, and in come the words, just as we did in PowerPoint. All right, so that was pretty simple. And now I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate that slide. And just as we did before, I want to modify this for summer and autumn. I'm going to right click on the picture and I'm going to replace it with a picture from the web. And I want a nice summer picture. Click replace. Click on autumn, right click, replace, search the web. Select a nice fall picture at the base of this panel, click replace. And there you have it. So you would guess, and you would be right, that this slide inherited the animation. So if I click on slideshow, the summer and autumn labels are already animated because I duplicated the slide and then the copy inherited the settings. Now, one of the other things that I showed you in PowerPoint that you can also do here in Google Slides is just change the appearance, enhance a single slide. So let's say I think that this lesson 1 title slide is a little boring. Well, what can I do? You'll notice that in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, I'm looking at it, looks like a little star, and it says Explore. So if I click on Explore, panel on the right opens up, and it gives me all of these design options. So these are separate and apart from themes, right? These are just options for this particular slide. And you can do that with any slide and just check out what is available, click it, and just change the appearance of a slide. So explore if you have graphic elements or pictures. It will make an attempt, to do something a little bit different or interesting. You can see Explore now is showing a slightly different display for my pictures that it's a little confusing. So I'm going to undo that. But it's worth checking out because you may just find something that enhances your design. And personally, because I have no design skill, I'm not very good with color or layout. I kind of like checking these things out just to see what can, just improve upon whatever it is that I have, pulled together. All right, now let's take a look at inserting a video. And I'm going to go ahead and insert that same YouTube video for seasons. So I'm going to insert a slide with title only. And this is going to be my seasons video. You'll also notice here, just as I start, because I left the Explore panel open, just as I start to type, all of these gorgeous options here. And I just love this one here. So pretty. But I want to use this slide for a video. So it's going to kind of just block out this lovely picture. So I'm going to undo that and come back here. But I want to insert a video. So there's no icon here on the toolbar for video, but if I go to insert, there's video. And you'll notice here that I have options where in PowerPoint I did not. I had to, in PowerPoint, type in the or paste the URL. But here you could actually search YouTube for the video. And I don't actually recall the name of the video. It's actually, well, it's Seasons ESL. Let's see if we can get it to come up. Yeah, I would have to type a little bit more. It's Seasons ESL conversation. I'm typing so bad. Oh my gosh. And there it is. So you could type it in, or you could go out to the video and copy and paste the URL. But if you knew the name of it, you might find the search easier than typing and copying and pasting URLs. So here's my video. I can click on it and click select. And just as we saw in PowerPoint, the video is embedded. I can stretch it out a little bit. And when I'm in slideshow mode, simply click to play. And there you have it. And press escape to come out. And you've now inserted a video. So super simple and very much the same, as PowerPoint. All right. So as I continue through, I would probably insert section headers for each. So maybe this would be my seasons. And then maybe after that, we would do vocabulary and insert section for vocabulary. I would give my file a name. So way up here, it says untitled presentation. I would type in lesson 1. Actually, as soon as I clicked, it grabbed the text from the first slide and it made and created a title, which is quite fine, right? Because it's trying to help me along. And there I would have my lesson 1. What I wanted to show you next is if you have a PowerPoint presentation and you'd like to start using and modifying it in Google Slides, how do you go about doing that? So that's what I'm going to walk you through next. All right, so one of the things that you would need to do is get comfortable working with Google Drive. So Google Slides, if you return to Google Slides repeatedly, you'll always see your most recent lesson. You can open it and create a copy and just keep going without ever having to go to Google Drive. Google Drive, though, however, is where all of your files that you create within the Google Suite are stored. So anything that you create in slides or sheets, etc., they're all stored here. You can create folders, get organized, etc. So although this is not a lesson on Drive, just want to point out to you that that same little Rubik's Cube grid, when it opens up, has an icon for Drive. And if you have a Google account, meaning you have a Gmail account, you can go to Google Drive. And this is my storage area. And you can see here that I have a whole bunch of folders created and a whole bunch of loose files that I've created. And every time I create something in Google Slides, it gets saved here with the date it was modified, etc. So this is Google Drive. So my point in showing you this is what would happen if somebody sent you a PowerPoint you'd like to use, or you have a PowerPoint that you'd like to use. Here's just an example where I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to use. It happens to be in an Outlook email. So here's the email. I'm kind of wiggling it around on the screen. And there is a PowerPoint. It's called lesson12.pptx. That tells me it was created and saved in PowerPoint. And if I want to save it in my Google Drive, all I have to do is click and drag it and drop it. And I already have one named the same, so I'm just going to say replace the existing one. You can tell I've done this example before, as I already have the same file. In the lower right corner, this particular document is loading and is being saved to Google Drive. And now that it's saved, I can go scroll down and get it. And there it is, lesson 12. So if I double click and open a PowerPoint saved in a Google application like Google Drive, well, guess what? It's going to open in Google Slides. Same thing is true as if, let's say, Gmail is your primary email account. If you open a PowerPoint sent to you and you open it in a Gmail, you go to open that file, it will just automatically launch into Google Slides. So Google kind of stays with its own suite if you're already working in Gmail. But if you have Yahoo Mail, or like me, I have Comcast email, I'm working in Outlook, it's a different application. I can bring it into my Drive to open it as Google Slides. So here I'm going to double click on the PowerPoint. And when it opens, I'm going to get a message at the top of my screen that says that some PowerPoint features can't be displayed in Google Slides and will be dropped if you make changes. So what it's letting me know is maybe some of my animation or maybe a link or something else that I've created is not going to work in Google Slides. So that's not the worst thing, because really as Google Slides has made advances, there are fewer things that are not supported in Google Slides, but you probably will lose a few things. If you look at the title of my file, it says lesson12.pptx. So it's still trying to be a PowerPoint presentation, right? So if you want to get rid of the pptx extension, file extension, and you want to eliminate any kind of messages regarding compatibility, what you could just do is go to File and save it as a Google Slides document. And then the document just is going to leave behind any fuss or bother related to its prior life as a PowerPoint presentation. So now if I look at the top, it says lesson 12. It's no longer trying to be a PowerPoint presentation. All right, so here maybe I have, like I said, someone sent this to me possibly, and I'd like to use it. I can just start editing it just as I would anything that I build from scratch in Google Slides. I can now edit, maybe make this lesson 13. This is automatically being saved for me. I have a review homework slide here. Let's change that for lesson 12. If you're working in the Ventures book, like I did when I was tutoring, you can create a standard slide and just change it up as you advance, from one page to the other. Here's my section introducing adjective order. And what I would do is just, if this week we were going to be working on some other topic, just type in a change to the section, start making changes to all the supporting slides. This was one of my standards, right? The dictionary. I had standard placeholders to transition to practice pronunciation. Here were some animated practice slides that I had showed you earlier. Some practice slides for synonyms that I had mentioned earlier. My standard slides for the today's date and the weather and so on. So my template served me well because there were probably at least 10, 15 or more slides that I could use simply by making minor edits to them as I went from week to week. So I sure hope that you found some of the topics covered in today's session helpful. We went over really high level do's and don'ts, templates and themes in both Google Slides and PowerPoint, which I think is a great starting place if you're building a template for yourself. We did a lot in the area of inserting and formatting shapes and pictures and links and so on. Animation, always helpful to help you control what is you're presenting on the screen. And the very last one where we took a look at some of the things that you can do in Google Slides. So with that, I just want to point out one last thing, that if you are looking for help, of course, there are hundreds of videos and YouTube that you can check out. But this is a website that I've actually used for some of my classes. I was training folks to use Excel and PowerPoint, Excel and Microsoft Word, is to come here to GCF Global, type in the search field, something you're looking for. So if you're working in PowerPoint 2016 and you need some help, oh my gosh, I can't type today at all. And you search in for PowerPoint 2016, this website is really great because one, it has lots of information on the different versions. If you scroll through and you look at the topics, you can see here there are a total of 10 pages with different topics on PowerPoint. And let's say you wanted to see something on inserting videos. In 2016, there is introductory information. There's a how-to video. And if I scroll down, there should also be some step-by-step. Yeah, number one, do this. Number two, do that. And it's a great way to go back and review the step-by-step instructions for any one technique. And I find that the content is really thorough and easy to follow. So you may like this website. Again, it's GCF Global. And they also have information and guidance on how to work with Google Slides. All right, with that, I say goodbye, and hopefully I'll see you in another video in the future.